Today's video is sponsored by Native Sons Goods, makers of premium quality guitar, bag, and camera straps, handmade in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Check out their website to order your own custom creation and play in style. And remember, when you support my sponsors, you support this channel, and I sure appreciate it. Hey, how's it hanging, boys and girls? Brad the Guitarologist here. In this video, we're going to open a box, see what's in the box, fix what's in the box. You know the drill. This package came with a note. It says, Brad, the sign and the fanon are yours to keep. I don't know much about the fanon. Try not to laugh too much when you see how I hooked up the power supply to the LED strip on the Stromberg. Probably not the most professional way to do it, but hey, I'm no professional. It has a pretty good hum that comes and goes, along with some crackling and popping every now and then. Thanks for checking it out. This fellow Chris, he also sent me an email about this stuff. He said, I don't know, I think he said he was cleaning out his grandmother's or grandfather's stuff and found some things he thought I might like or something. And I think this fanon right here is one of them. So he sent me this to keep. And then I've got a Stromberg amplifier apparently over here in another box. Let's take a look at this fanon first, since it's loose. Let's see. Looks like it might be Eel. Looks like it might be EL34s, possibly. Not sure. Nothing. Well, I say nothing's labeled, but you just can't read it. I'm guessing maybe that's tubes. Okay, so these are some capacitors, I guess, that came out of this fanon. And we've got some tubes here, I guess, that came out of it also. So there's a Japanese 12AX7. Another Japanese 12AX7 or something that's gone to air. Top's been sheared off. Got a 6CA4. That'll be a rectifier. And a 7189. Cool. That's an industrial EL84. And another 7189. So it's probably a push-pull 7189 amplifier. So cool, man. Thanks for that, Chris. Oh man, so here's the sign he was talking about. It looks like he's custom made me a Guitarologist sign here. Maybe it lights up with LEDs, I'm not sure. Well, I'm going to plug it in just a second, but check it out. Looks like it's laser etched or something on here. Says the Guitarologist. I have a tube in the middle with my name, a guitar over here, and a soldering iron. How cool is that? That's really awesome, Chris. He's even got a telly over there. Cool, man. That's awesome. Let's plug this thing in. I want to see what it looks like lit up. Well, that's just too cool. That is really just too cool. Thanks, Chris. That looks awesome, man. Alright, so here's the internal box with presumably his amplifier in it. Let's see. We did a pretty good job packing this thing. Dump out some of these peanuts. Okay. He does this etched, I guess this is plexiglass. He does this etched plexiglass. It's pretty cool. A Stromberg-Carlson amplification device. Okay, so I think what I probably will do here is, you know, obviously we're going to have to service it. He said it's got some hum and some issues. And he also said he might want me to do some mods and things to it while I'm in there. So I think first things first, we'll probably plug it into a speaker and kind of get a sense of what it's doing or not doing, and then kind of go from there. Alright, according to the back here, it looks like he installed this fusible power receptacle here, which is good. He installed a jack here, but has it labeled 16 ohms. My bench speaker is 8 ohms, and that'll be fine for now, for test purposes. It'd be nice to actually have this more flexible than just hardwiring it at 16 ohms. That's one thing I'll look at, because if it's the original transformer, then it should have the 4, 8, and 16 ohm taps. And if it does have these taps, I'll take advantage of that by running a wire out, and you'll be able to stick the blade on whichever one of these you want it to be. So if you want it to be 4, you can stick it on 4, 8, you know, you get the idea. So we'll probably change that, but for now, just for testing, let's go ahead and leave it. We'll plug it into here with my 8 ohm speaker and see what it does or doesn't do. Yeah, I do hear a little bit of rustling and so forth in the background. I have not opened this up to wiggle the tube sockets or anything like that to see if it might be a, you know, loose tube or whatever, but sometimes it is a that sort of thing. But yeah, it probably wouldn't hurt to change that cap at this point. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool looking thing for sure, and it sounds pretty good. It's got a 6U8 preamp, which that should be a pentode and a triode in one. And then you got a couple of 6BQ5s. There's our hum adjust and 5Y3 rectifier. But yeah, I can hear a little, there's a little bit of rustling in there. I don't know if I'll change very much about the tone, but we're definitely going to give it a service. So yeah, let's pop it open, see what the wiring looks like, maybe clean things up a bit. There's actually a 7025 now that I look a little further in there. There's a preamp tube all the way in the back there. But yeah, let's open this thing up, see what the wiring looks like, and yeah, see what we need to do to it. Okay, so here we are inside of this thing, and yeah, he was right. It's interesting what he's done here. Yeah, it looks like he took a regular, I don't know what voltage that is. It's maybe 9 volt, something like that output, yeah. And he's using that to power his LEDs, and it looks like he's, it looks like maybe he's no, he is powering it off of the, okay, he is powering it off the power switch. There's nothing necessarily wrong with this. I would just say there's too much lead here. So one thing I am definitely going to do is cut down on this lead. You shouldn't have this much extra lead inside of an amp like this. You're just going to bring yourself problems later on in terms of noise. We have original capacitors all around. All of these are original. This is original, that's original. All these little pyramids are original. There's even a bumblebee down in there. I do see from the... you see there the Astron. Now you see right there 934. That's 1959 34th week on that Astron capacitor. So that'll have to go. There's probably a date code on this one as well. It's gonna come out regardless. So let's see. Yeah, 1960, the 33rd week, and all these pots are also dated 1960. You can see right there 137 That's for CTS 6030, so the 30th week of 1960. I think he already has a like I said, he had a fusible power socket here, so should be a fuse already in here. So I won't have to add a fuse, presuming that it's correct. I'll get in there in a minute and see. But a couple things I do notice, besides the fact that all these capacitors will probably have to be changed. We've got a really crispy bias resistor right there. I mean really crispy. It measures 180 ohms, which that sounds about right for a pair of Eel 84s. Another thing is he's kept this tag, but he's actually just hot glued it to the inside of the bottom. I would not advise anybody do that, because you're just gonna risk a fire by having this in there. It probably wouldn't hurt to have it in there, but probably you know, secure it a little bit better inside of there. So I'll leave it for now, but I'm gonna advise he do something different with it. But having it, you know, rattling around loose, it's liable to get up against anything and sort of catch fire on you. So you gotta be careful about that. It does have a schematic, which is nice to see. Always nice to see original schematics in amplifiers like this. And let's see here. Originally they've got mic 1. I don't know what all he's done to this. So we'll take a look, but it looks like originally we had mic 1 go into 1/2 of a 7025, and then out of that directly into a, let's see, that's a 500K pot, into a 220K grid stopper, into the next stage, which is the pentode of the 6U8 tube. We have a 0.22 coupling capacitor to the next stage. This is a cathodione phase inverter right here, the other half of the 6U8. These are versatile tubes, anything like a 6U8 or a 6GH8. Any of those tubes that are pentode and triode in one, I think they're pretty underutilized, honestly, in today's world of amplifiers. I don't know why they kind of went out of fashion, but they did. I know sometimes they tend to, you know, go microphonic on you, but you can get this 6U8. That's a very plentiful tube. I mean, really plentiful. You can find those everywhere in OS, and there's so many of them that, you know, they're cheap. But then anyway, we go to the output stage, and it is cathode biased, and I think that's 180 ohm. Yeah, so that's pretty much still dead on as far as the value, but we're probably going to change it anyway. We'll change it to a metal film. And on this input, you know, I don't know how versatile he wants this thing to be, but it might be worth looking into to possibly parallel these first two stages. We'll see what we can do about this. But yeah, just floating around some ideas at the moment, but it's good to have the schematic at least to go by. Okay, so a couple other things I can ascertain from this schematic, and I could also see from the back of the amplifier that this is a model SAU-22. Also, the bass and the bass treble pot is comprised of it's a high pass filter right there with what is that, a 2000 pico probably, and a 1 meg resistor, or excuse me, potentiometer rather. And over here we do have a hum balance adjust, and it is tied to the cathode of the output tubes, which is where I would have probably put it if it wasn't already there. Okay, so flash forward here just a little bit, and I have replaced all of the signal capacitors, all the coupling caps in the amplifier. I've replaced the bias resistor, that really crispy one that we saw earlier, and man, is that thing ever crispy. It was 180 ohms on the schematic, and that's exactly what it came out to be. Replaced this capacitor over here, adjusted the hum balance pot a little bit to bring the hum down, and this thing is sounding really phenomenal. There are a couple instances where I did go ahead and beef up the capacitors between certain stages. For instance, there on the output here, there were a couple of, the schematic called for .033s, and since that's not really a, right here, .033s, and since that's not really a standard capacitor you see very much today, I went ahead and bumped that up rather than down, so I went up to .047 at that point. There was another place in the amp where it also called for a .033, and I bumped that up to a .047 as well. Went ahead and jumpered the two inputs. So, you know, you do still have the two inputs there, but I put a jumper wire, that black wire right there, between the inputs. And what that's going to do is allow you to adjust the controls for either microphone channel. And you can either get, you know, a slightly different tone, because one of these inputs has a different capacitor. I went ahead and changed it because both of these also call for .033s. So what I did was I made one of them a .022 and made the other one a .047, so you'll get a slightly different sound going into one as opposed to the other. Or you could do both of them at the same time and really rock the heck out of this thing with that paralleled input stage. So that's a pretty worthwhile modification, I think, for something like this. Also, I have a completely unused phono control here, which I'm thinking about doing something with. And what I was thinking about doing is possibly adding a late master volume, not a post-phase inverter one, but sticking a master volume right there, and possibly in place of this 220K resistor, making this variable. You won't be able to turn the master all the way down, I don't think, because you have this 47K resistor here, so you'll still have something going in even at the bottom of the range. But we'll just gator clip it in at first and see if it works in principle, and then it should, and then we'll run with it if it does, and if it doesn't, we'll rip it back out and try something else. But we do again have a empty space for some kind of modification that we can do here, which would be a wasted opportunity if we did nothing with it. So we'll think about doing something like that. But I have ordered a can cap for this thing. The customer has elected to go with a can style capacitor because I've told him, you know, it's fairly crowded in here, especially with this power supply for those LEDs, which I'm going to leave alone. This is his own thing, so I'm leaving that. But replacing that can is also going to look a little bit better rather than trying to restuff the can and all that, because you can actually see in there. So not to mar up, you know, the looks of the thing, it would be best really just to replace that can with a new can capacitor, multi-section. You'll recall this output was labeled 16 ohms only, and what I've done is I've run a wire out of the common. I've just taken the screw out and run the wire through there from the output jack, so you can actually select, you know, 8 ohms, 4 ohms, or 16 ohms now. So that's much more flexible, and you know, I didn't have to drill any holes or add any switches or anything like that. So if you have an old PA like this is the way I like to do it. Just make it selectable using your new jack. Let's wait on that can capacitor to come in. When it comes in, we'll finish this project. Alright, we are back with this Stromberg-Carlson amplifier, and got some parts in, and one of the parts I got in was the replacement can for this thing. So let's go ahead and replace this can capacitor. First I want to check out the new can and make sure it's what I ordered. Yes, it is. These are exact replicas of the original cans made by Mallory. They're made by CE Manufacturing. You can get them from Antique Electronics Supply. And the one I ordered here is a 30, 30, and 30. All three are at 525 volts, and I think this is going to do the job nicely. So the first thing I want to do is cut off the terminals that are already here. One of these capacitors has already been basically cut out of the circuit and moved over to here because it was the bypass capacitor for the output, so we won't be using that one. So that's why we only need 3, whereas the the can before had 4 in it. But again, what I want to do first is just cut these out. So I want to get a pair of cutters here. All right, so essentially what I want to do is I want to get my cutters down in here and cut these out at the base and leave everything attached. So it's just a way easier way of doing it. That way you don't have to guess, where everything was after you've cut it all out. You can just kind of keep it together. The trick is not breaking any connections elsewhere while you cut. Cutting these things is, there we go. There's one down. The reason I went with 30, 30, and 30 is because in my reckoning that's going to be plenty enough filtering for what we have here. It's not exactly what came from the factory in this thing, but I think it's going to do just fine. Alright, there's number 2. And with that one, that was actually that one kind of came easy because the whole blade connector that went down inside of there just came out all at once. So I'm going to try to get that to happen on this one too. Yep, there we go. So that worked out okay. So now we can get these tabs off of here. That I usually like to just sometimes you can actually straighten out the tabs, but more times than not it's just a big pain in the ass, and you're better off just getting them to break off entirely. Yeah, it'll probably come out now with some coaxing. So you can get a look at what he's done here with his lighting. Here is how he's got this lit up. He's got his power supply coming in here, and this is a strip. You can get these online. Who made this one? Alpina or Alpina. But yeah, you can basically get these strips and you can cut them to size, whatever size you need them to be. So, they're just together in series, and you can just cut them off wherever you need them to be cut, which is convenient. If you want to do something like this, that's pretty cool. And with especially if you have the ability to do what he's done with these really cool etchings. In this, I don't know if this is plastic or lucite, or I don't know what kind of stuff this is. It's fairly thick, but it's it's been etched really nicely. And if you have the ability to do that, this would be something to definitely look into, and I might look into in the future too, to do on some projects. It's kind of cool the way he's done it. But you see here, he's got a couple of JJ EL84s. We've got an old school 6U8 that looks to me like it's probably an RCA right there. We have a GE 12AX7 back here, and an old Magnavox labeled 5Y3, which is probably a Sylvania. You can usually tell Sylvania tubes by the yellow colored lettering. That was pretty much their trademark. But yeah, let's see if we can pull this can off of here. we've got that one problem. I've got that one problem tab, but I don't know. I might be able to get it. Yeah, it's fine. Okay, so here's the old one. It's numbered 472. There we go. Fits like a glove. Okay, now what I'm doing here is just soldering the old terminal, and I know there's going to be somebody who objects to this. It's like, you're not doing it right. But I really don't give a damn, because this is pretty much the easiest way to do it, and it's the least invasive. But what I'm doing is just leaving the old terminal attached, and I've put the bottom end of the old terminal through the new terminal and soldered them together. So it's, you know, it's still as rock solid as it ever was, and I haven't had to try to pry all of these components off of that old terminal, and, you know, so I could wrap them around the new one. Just leave them wrapped around this one, stick the old one through, and then, you know, job's a good one. So that's my approach to this. Okay, so there are those soldered on, and the big caps are replaced. Okay, so once again, if we look right here on the phase inverter, we have a 220K resistor right here at this point, and that's in the position that a volume control normally would be in. So what we're going to do is replace that 220K with that 500K pot. Okay, so the 220K resistor we want to change is this one right here. That's going from pin 9, which is the input for that triode half of that 6U8 tube. And we want to basically just snip that out and run some leads over to the phono control. Okay, so I've clipped out the resistor that was going from the wiper over to this point, that was feeding the signal, the input signal in from the phono, and replaced it with these two red wires. These two red wires are coming over here now and basically replacing that 220K resistor that was there. So let's fire it up now and see what it does, and see if this actually does what I think it's going to. Okay, well, pretty much my only concern here is that we're going to end up with this being too high of a value, 500K instead of that 220K. But we shall see. Yeah, you see at the top, well, first of all, it's hooked up backwards, but see at the top of the range, this is just totally the wrong value. And another thing, you're not going to be able to turn it all the way down, because there's another resistor between there and ground. So I think we might have to rethink this just a little bit. Let me think about it. Okay, so I figured out what the problem was. The one side of that potentiometer was still tied to ground, so that was an issue. So now that I have that fixed, it actually does work, but the problem is it's this value, the 500K, is pretty much way off. So what we want to do is find the ideal value that I'm going to replace this pot with. Right now, let's see. If I'll show you what I mean. It's all the way down right now, and it goes pretty much full bore within the first, you know, like 2 settings. Like on 3 or so, it's already all the way up, and then it just does nothing the rest of the way. So what I want to do is find the top of this range, seems like it's about right there. So I want to measure the resistance right there. So let's kill it. So, you know, about 150K. I went ahead and remeasured and got it down to the very lowest I could possibly measure, and it ended up being about 50K. So I put a 50K pot in here instead of the whatever it was, 150, and shrink tube this ground wire and moved the top wire down here. So hopefully this will be the right direction now. So let's test it now. One last final look around here, and I believe we are ready to give this one a demonstration and send her back home. Okay, ready to give this thing a listen. Like I said, we do have a master volume now. I'm going to start with this thing about halfway up. Okay, yeah, once again, I think I've ticked off all of my neighbors, and I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. I certainly have. Please hit subscribe down below if you have. And for now, y'all take care.